got a question for you. Are you honest with God? Now, you might be thinking, well, that's kind of an odd question since God knows everything, and he does know everything. In fact, 1 John 3:20 literally says that. It says he, God, knows everything. Psalm 147:5 says his understanding knows no limit. 1 Kings 8:39 says God knows every human heart. Psalm 139:4 says that God knows every word we're going to speak before we speak it. And in Matthew 10:30, Jesus says that God even knows the number of hairs that are on our heads. So yes, God knows everything, including everything about us. And even though we may know that that's true, it can still be hard at times for us to be honest with God. We may do or say something and kind of act like God doesn't know because we're unwilling to, or we're ashamed to bring it with him and to deal with it. We may not be honest with God about how we think or feel about something because we don't think that God would approve of what we're thinking or we're feeling. We may not share things about ourselves with God because we're embarrassed about them. So there are a lot of reasons why we may not be honest with God at times, even though the reality is that God already knows all of those things. But being honest with God is actually really important. And not just so that we can confront our sin and be forgiven and deal with it instead of letting it fester, but even more so because our hope would be to have a relationship with God, to know him and to be known by him. And that's really not going to happen, or at least not going to happen to the degree that we would hope it would if we're not being honest with God. You see, although God knows everything about us, knowing facts about someone is really different than actually knowing them. And God really and truly wants to know you. So letting yourself be known by God is really similar to the way that you would let yourself be known by anyone. It means sharing about your life with them, about your feelings. It means revealing yourself to them. And honesty really is an essential part of all of those things. Honesty with God means really sharing everything with him, like you would with your best friend or a good friend. Now, many people have really found making this decision to be totally honest with God to be an incredibly freeing experience. In some cases, an incredibly healing experience, to have no secrets with God, to be fully known by him, to have shared it all, and to know that you are still loved and accepted by him. So I would encourage you to think about what it would mean for you to be completely honest with God. What are those places? What are those things that you may not be being honest with him about? How about stepping out in faith and trusting God with all of those things?